going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation. It is 4 o'clock and the bells are ringing to signify that. I will bring us, or I will lead us in the invocation if you don't mind. Please pray with me. Father, thank you so much for bringing all of us here in the business interest of this community, and let us ever be mindful to keep the community first in the decisions and deliberations. For it's in your name I pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Item number 1 on the agenda is the Visitor Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the EIC. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items because the Open Meetings Act requires an item be posted on an agenda 74 hours before the meeting. Visitors are asked to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. And I do have 3 that have turned in cards. So at this time, if you are so inclined to make a presentation, you're welcome to take the podium. Peggy?
Should I wait? Should I do it now or wait for the public hearing?
Good question, Mike. Is there a podium seat for the public hearing? Are these public hearing related? Because it doesn't tell me.
The aquatics thing.
If you want to speak on that item, wait till the public hearing.
Thank you.
All right. And I do see here where it does say aquatic study on both of those, so we'll bring you guys up on those. All right. Any others? Robert?
Okay. Robert Naiman, 1800 Glen Road. Assistant City Manager Hoppy emailed me some information to review this past weekend. I called him this morning at about 8:01, and he was gracious enough to spend 35 minutes answering my questions. I want to thank him for his knowledge and patience. In the same vein, I want to thank City Manager McDaniel, Director of Finance Yarborough, and EI Secretary Brown for all of their help since I joined the Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation. Thank you all. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, let's move on to item number 2, which is approval of the minutes from 2 different meetings. One scheduled February 19th and the other one February 7th. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. If none, then let's vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, raise your right hand. Any opposed? All right. Those carry. Item number 3 is the monthly reports. Is that going to be you, Sandra? Oh, okay. How are you today?
I'm good.
Great.
My name's Amy Dozier. I wanted to introduce myself to everyone. So as y'all have probably heard, Sandra is retiring. Yes. Friday is her last day after 34 years of service. I know. Yeah, I'm asking the same thing. So yeah, she's been a valuable asset to our city, and yeah, put in so much time and effort and dedication. So. We thank her for her service, and I'm going to be taking over her position as finance director. So I thought I'd jump right in and give y'all's monthly report while Sandra's still here to assist as well. So I think you have that in your packet, and I'll just go through a few things. Looking at page 1, that is the summary page. We're looking at financial activity for the month ended February 28th. So the first part of it goes through and shows income, which our primary income is obviously sales tax. So we had about $355,000 worth of sales tax received in February, and also some interest revenue. The expenses for the month included administrative services fee that's paid to the city of Kerrville, and then also some transfers for debt service, and then for some projects. And that leaves our ending cash balance in the main sales tax improvement fund at $1.7 million at the end of February. Down below, we have the Capital Projects Fund, which is a separate fund specifically where we put money aside for projects that I think y'all know about. So we had a beginning cash balance there of almost 2.7 million, and some transfers in that you see happening up above from the Sales Tax Improvement Fund. And those transfers in related to the tennis center, downtown streetscape, housing, and the reuse pond. And there's some additional detail on the subsequent pages. But anyway, we end with the ending cash balance in the projects fund of almost 3.5 million at the end of February. And so together, those two funds have almost 5.2 million in cash at the end of February. If you turn to the second page in your report, you'll see a little bit more detail about the projects in particular in the expense category that we discussed. And this just gives you more detail compared to the summary page. And then let's see, before I go on though, are there any questions on the first two pages? All right. The third page has some sales tax revenue analysis up at the top. So you can see that sales tax is coming in a little bit under what we had expected, and both for the year and for the month. We also have on this page some cash and investment information. You can see where the 5.2 million is invested. And most of it is in this EIC tax pool account, which is like similar to a money market account and is actually getting like almost 170 basis points on the interest, which is, it's a completely safe and liquid investment. And then down below there we have some information about projects and what projects EIC has funded and has committed to funding. And I think Mr. Hoppy is going to go through the details on the project updates next. But are there any questions about the third page?
I have one. Just when should we start being concerned or just give up the notion that our sales tax is, you know, it appears that it's the same as it was last year, which is okay, but
Yeah.
you know, we obviously budgeted more.
Right.
Do we have reasons for it, or are we just hoping it's something will change?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's something we have been looking into as well. Because, yeah, basically we're flat with the previous year, and we had projected more like 4% up compared to the previous year, and so that's a problem. We've been doing research and analysis. The things that we've been able to determine are we are in line with like Bernie and Fredericksburg, San Antonio, Ingram. They're also flat or down slightly for the year. Other parts of the state are obviously up significantly, and anything associated with the Gulf Coast and, you know, Hurricane Harvey kind of areas are up significantly. So we seem to be in a flat part of the state as far as looking at individual industries. We've seen a little bit of a either flat or a little bit of a decline in construction, which seems interesting because it looks like there's a lot of building going on around here, but as far as the way their sales tax is reported, it's coming in flat or a little bit down. Maybe there are less roof replacements going on, but there is construction going on. So anyway, bottom line is though we're continuing to try to mine the data and see if we can figure out a specific reason. But it does appear that we're in line with other cities in our area. So.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I'll probably ask it before, and I know it's just opened, the athletic complex. Is there any way that we'll have to, going forward, to track sales tax increases, hotel tax increases, et cetera, from that specific area, that project?
We, well, one thing to keep in mind is, so the sales tax that was received in February relates to tax that was actually collected in December. So there's a couple of month lag, so we definitely aren't seeing anything yet in these numbers. And then as far as actually being able to pinpoint, what we can do is we can look at specific payers. So we do have the ability to look at, you know, this particular hotel and compare them, you know, last year to this year. And we also can look at particular industries, like accommodations is a category for an industry sales tax wise. So we'd be able to do that. We won't necessarily be able to specifically say, the change at this hotel was due to the sports complex, but we can get to some fairly granular level data that way.
You think it's possible that the city could maybe just have a form that each of the hotels and motels had, and where they could fill in, what they think the number of rooms that were attributed, to a sporting event, a baseball tournament or something like that? Would that be really hard to do?
I don't know. That's a good question, and that also may be something Convention and Visitors Bureau might be interested in doing. But yeah, we may be able to do some kind of side tracking like that. It may not be 100% accurate if it's a voluntary thing, but it could give us some additional information. So.
Thank you.
I do have one question. I noticed that a large portion of our money is held with tax pool, as you had mentioned, and I agree the rate's high. But how is tax pool excluded from the FDIC insurance coverage that all other financial institutions have to abide by?
It
State
is.
law?
Yeah, I'd have to look up the specific law of how that works, but we do have to follow the Public Funds Investment Act, and it does give us, specific things that we can invest in and percentages we can invest, and these pools that are held by, it's different governmental entities that contribute to the pool, and their constant dollar are considered, completely safe investment. And as far as why it's not FDIC insured, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can ask our investment advisor, and I know she'll be able to cite a specific law. But
They must be investing in treasuries and agencies and things like that.
They could
So
be.
they're taking that money and putting it in something that qualifies, so they wouldn't be able to do that. I'm sure.
I'll follow up with you via email, though.
Okay.
And let
Please
you know.
do. Just curious.
But and that is one of the things that our auditors look at each year, is are we invested in funds that are allowed by the Public Funds Investment Act, and are we in compliance with it? And we do have an outside financial advisor, Patterson and Associates, that helps us each month to make sure we're continually in compliance with that. And Linda Patterson, who owns that company, is like one of the authors of the Public Fund Investment Act, and so we have a good source there, and anytime we have questions like that. So I'll get back to you via email.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Amy. All right. Moving on to item 3B, which are our projects, the River Trail and the reused distribution lines and the tennis center improvements. EA?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just wanted to give you a quick update on 3 of the projects. Reuse distribution mains, we've got pretty much all 32,000 linear feet of pipe installed. We are, next up is going to be the area that actually crosses the river there at the near the 534 bridge. And then going back in and kind of doing some of the punch list items as far as repairing some of the roadways and smoothing those out. And in fact, I believe River Hill Boulevard was accomplished today. So moving through that process, getting that cleaned up. River Trail West, clearing and grubbing is about 95% complete. So they are moving along on that project, and it's making good progress. Starting to see where the path will flow through there. Tennis center improvements. We've had, as we've mentioned before, we completed stakeholder meetings in the fall timeframe. The design has gone through based off of that feedback, has been submitted to staff. Staff provided some initial feedback. We'll be reviewing that again mid-month with them. The hope is to have a additional public session and some time with the council to review those documents mid-April timeframe, possibly at April 17th at their workshop, or some afternoon meetings in that same day. So we'll keep the EIC posted on that, and certainly if any of you all would like to provide some input at that meeting, we would certainly welcome that. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any other questions? Thank you, EA.
Yes, sir.
All right, item number 4 is a public hearing for let me look at it's just one in item number 4. So I'm going to close the meeting that we're in and open the public meeting. It is 4:15. So, are you going to be making the presentation? Okay, come on up.
Okay, so good afternoon. Pursuant to last month's meeting and your consideration of the funding application, this afternoon before you is the funding agreement for the Aquatic Feasibility Study in an amount not to exceed $100,000. Just a reminder of the scope of work. This project would evaluate the condition of the pool as it stands today. It would provide a needs assessment and work with Shriner University, our stakeholders, KISD, obviously the public, to decide, what do they want to see for this type of facility, recommendations for improvements, research to evaluate the viability of the project, evaluation of our local workforce to see if we can sustain staff for this type of facility if we do extend the year-round or a extended season, and a cost analysis for the project. Our timeline, we brought it back to you last month. We're here tonight before you for the public hearing portion of it and approval of the funding agreement, if you desire to do so. We'll take it to council on the 27th, and then we will initiate the RFQ process for this project. So our recommendation is to hold a public hearing and approval of the agreement as presented.
Thank you very much. All right, public hearing is open, and now I have, I think, 3 that are going to be part of this particular agenda item. So we'll start back where we started before. Peggy McKay.
Peggy McKay, P.O. Box 291464, Kerrville. The press release in today's paper and then the confirmation on the board here states the reasons for the study, including the inclusion of the competitive swimming. In 1998, a survey was conducted which suggested the priorities were water quality and availability of water should be of high concern. Also on a high priority on the want list were bathrooms in the downtown area. Last year, the city contracted for the opinions of Kerrville residents, and a scientific survey was completed, plus there was a website survey. In the responses to the scientific survey, a little better than 50% of the respondents supported only an updated pool and a children's pool. The web respondents, only the children's pool. And the percentages, I divided them down the middle, combining the essential and the very important categories as a positive, and then the somewhat important and not important at all into the non-supportive. Why does the city spend tax dollars on enhancements such as an indoor pool, year-round hours, etc., when the survey shows that residents do not support the funding? The city paid for the survey to determine the wishes of the citizenry. Why should we spend those tax dollars if the surveys are just placed on a shelf collecting dust? If advanced, this project should be brought before the voters for their approval. Unlike the sports complex, which was funded with certificates of obligation, no voter approval. This project, the complex, requires $500,000 each year for debt service and close to another $500,000 each year for maintenance. It will be many years before the city sees any income revenue. Voters should have all information on projects, including specifics regarding any bonds and their accompanying debt service. These projects, both of these, to me, fall into the wants category and not the needs category, such as water quality and the sufficient water supply mentioned in an earlier study. Also, they asked for ease of automobile traffic throughout the city. Both of these quality of life projects have value. The question is, how do they appear on the financial side? KISD and Shriner University could have this have their competitive pool, the all-year pool, by partnering to build a facility on one of their campuses. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, David Bartels.
My name's David Bartels. I live at 200 McKay Drive in Kerrville. I retired last year and moved to Kerrville. Did a lot of lap swimming in the Olympic pool, and noticed that it's starting to show its age. It's almost 50 years old. I retired from the Gulf Coast. When I was down there, I was a president of a USA swimming team, TAAF, Summer League swim official, a high school official, and a USA swimming official. And noticed right away that this pool was not designed for competitive swimming. There's some things missing there, starting blocks, etc. Now there are, like I mentioned, this pool is starting to show its age. There's some maintenance issues. I don't know how much that's going to cost. I wouldn't, if the existing pool is usable, I wouldn't know how much it would cost to upgrade it. Or a new pool, I wouldn't know how much that costs. But if we do this feasibility study, we'll get all our answers and we can go from there. I urge you to pass the feasibility study and we'll know a lot more about this issue. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, David, and I apologize for butchering your last name.
That's all right.
All right, Charlie McIlvain.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Charlie McIlvain, President and CEO of the Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau. The address is 2108 Sidney Baker, and the Convention Bureau is in favor of seeing the funding for the feasibility study. The aquatic sports are becoming more year-round events, and our existing facility will not accommodate those programs where improvements could certainly make a difference. I think one of the things you have to look at is that the pool, sports complex, things like the youth event center probably will not, you may not see a return on investment, but these are great economic generators for the community, and they will bring in fresh new dollars and new tax revenue for the community. So we support the project. And if I may I address Mr. Newman's question from a little earlier on the sports activities? We can determine, when we have the tournaments in for the sports complex, we can establish a rate with the hotels that is different from the normal rates. It could even be, instead of $99, it could be $91, and from that point we can determine what the economic impact is.
Thank you. That's a good. That's makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. All right, Celeste Hammond.
Hi, I'm Celeste, and I live out in Comanche Trace, and I moved to Kerrville from Austin, and I was a long-term master swimmer in Austin, and like David, I really have missed that opportunity here in Kerrville to swim in a good pool with other people. And I think that having a complex, particularly one that can be open year-round, offers a wide range of programming opportunities, including master swimming opportunities. And master is anyone who's 18 years and older. But there are many people, like David and myself, who swam when they were younger and really like and enjoy the camaraderie of swimming with other people. And even though the survey might not have shown it with the first woman who presented the survey, I know that there are a number of people who are, in the master's classes that I was in, particularly, mostly people were 45 years and older, and also competed. There's quite a bit of competition for people who are masters 18 years old and older. And there's also tons of competition for age groupers, which are the children. And those possibilities recognize that you can have the competitions here, but not necessarily, you don't have to keep the pool full of competitions. Our children and our students at Schreiner can train here and compete in other places, and there's all sorts of opportunities with that. There's many things that you can do with a pool, keep it busy throughout the day, and that are income generators. So it may not be, I don't know what the financial part would be to offset the cost, but it would be generating financial income to it. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there were people who are in the community who really desire an aquatic center and would use it year-round. So thank you.
Thanks, Celeste. Any others? All right.
Can I ask the city
Yes.
attorney a question?
Sure.
I'm just curious, when we have a request for for people to, you know, look at the project, to bid on the or who were looking for qualifications.
Yes.
Are we required by law to put a dollar amount in the public? In other words, could we have a request without assigning exactly how much money we're willing to spend on that project, on the console, you know, on the design and the
You could, and I'm not aware that in our normal notices for RFQs, RFPs, that we put in some sort of, you know, dollar amount.
So this would be kind of unusual that we're doing it this way. Is that what you're saying?
Well, this is just a contract between the EIC and the city.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but that still makes it public domain for anybody.
Well, we're in the public domain, and so, you know, you're either going to get it this way, or you're going to drill down into the budget. You're going to, you know, I understand what you're saying, but it's not like we
have a request without having a dollar amount tied to the request. That's
right.
all.
I don't believe we do when we go out for an RFQ that we, you know, put that in there.
Okay, thanks.
We did for the pond at the athletic complex. We put in there the budgeted amount. I don't know if that's normal, but that's what we did that one.
All right. Any further comments? Ashley, thank you very much for presenting. And I'm going to close the public hearing. It is 4:27. All right, we will reopen the original meeting at 4:27. All right, item number 5 is executive session. There is a grant application to be discussed.
Hold on a sec. I think we were supposed to try and take action, right? Yeah. But before we did that, I wanted to ask a question of Ashley, if I could. Or the feasibility study, you know, right now we see Shriner and KSD with the desire to do it. Will the feasibility study have any further discussions with them to, when it comes back, so we have some sort of ballpark idea of what they'd be willing to partner with financially?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
part of the study as well.
Okay.
We'd further investigate and research to see what their commitments would be.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question. What type of vendor or firm are you going to be hiring? Is it going to be an architect, insurance consultant that brings all of it together, or have you?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll issue an RFQ.
Right.
Because we want to hire somebody that has experience doing what we're doing. And there's firms out there that do this, specifically aquatics firms. So we would put it out there and see who's the best qualified candidate.
So that'll be a firm probably outside of Kerrville, most likely, or the people that do that within Kerrville.
I don't know of a firm inside Kerrville that has done this, but I don't know, but
Yeah.
likely outside. I mean,
Okay.
we're going to open it up. And to address your question about the RFQ, including the dollar amount, we did put that in the tennis center improvement project RFQ, an amount not to exceed, so you can do that, just so they have an idea of what not to go past.
Question, Shriner and the Kerrville School District, are they interested in using the pool if it is just modified, cleaned up, fixed up and that sort of thing, as opposed to a rebuild? I mean, the pool is not designed, its configuration is inadequate for competitive swimming.
Right.
And it's my understanding that they're interested in having a competitive pool, so their interest might dwindle, if not disappear, if indeed we just repair this pool. Is that not correct?
That's what our understanding is as well, is
Okay.
they're looking for a competitive facility.
Okay.
And they're also looking at an opportunity to program for their elementary and middle school age children for us to offer them swim lessons during the day as well.
Okay.
Let me ask you one more question. Will this request, will it have several different, will we be seeking several different options as, to give choices as to what we want to do, how far we want to take this project?
As far as the concept plans,
Yes.
yes, it'll include a few different concepts and choices and,
Good.
associated costs for that.
Good.
All right. Any further comments, questions? All right, you should have a copy in your packet of the funding agreement that was referenced by this public hearing. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the funding agreement, which you have a copy of. That would be between the EIC and the city of Kerrville.
I'll make a motion.
Have a
second
motion
it.
and a second.
Mhm.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. And that is unanimous, so no opposition to that motion. All right. Now we can move on to item number 5, which is executive session, to discuss a matter that we have with regard to a funding request for public infrastructure extension along Thompson Road and deliberation. So if I could have a motion to that effect.
Now move we move into executive session under item
5501.071.
There you go.
551.087, as well
I'll second
for
it.
both. We good? All right, we are moving into executive session.
All in favor?
Oh, we didn't
I
vote
seconded
on
it,
that,
yeah, I
did we?
seconded.
All those in favor?
Got it.
My bad. Keep me in line. Everybody's back, okay? We'll come back into regular session. There was no action taken in the executive session. Bring us to item number 6, which is possible action for items discussed in executive session. And I would entertain a motion with regard to that discussion.
I move that we enter into a funding, or have a funding agreement drafted by council to, in accordance with what we just discussed. I don't know how else to say that, Mike, but that's what we're talking about.
And setting the
Yeah.
public hearing
Taking
date.
public hearing, yeah.
April the,
16th? It's your next regular meeting.
our next regular meeting, public hearing date.
I'll second it.
There you go.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. And opposed? All right. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. And approved. All right, any items for item number 7, which are items for future agendas? I see none. Any announcements? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? All those, second, motion is second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. We're finished. Thank you very much for your time.